After Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, was found to have stolen $5 million of Shohei Ohtani's money, there's some mixed messages coming from the both of them, and a lot of suspicion is surrounding baseball's biggest star. And for me, something's just not adding up about this scenario and this situation. Let's talk about that. Um, Listen, Shohei Ohtani, a gifted guy at the game of baseball, but incredibly private. Incredibly private. And like a perfect example of this is we found out about his wife when he got married, right? There was no leaks of him dating anybody. And she's a famous public figure herself. She's a Japanese professional basketball player. And so the story about Shohei Ohtani's longtime translator, business partner, and really friend, Ippei Mitsuhara, stealing money from him kind of was a shock to me when it came out. And there's just a lot of holes in this scenario that make it interesting. So if you're not familiar, Shohei Ohtani has a personal translator, Ippei, as he's often called, who has been with him for quite a few years. Back in Japan, he was Shohei's essentially personal manager. He came to the U.S. and became an employee of the Angels to help translate for Ohtani, but also helps manage him on a day-to-day basis. I mean, eats with him, exercises with him, talks with the team through him. All of that is all done through Ippei. And he's essentially a business partner, and in theory would have access to more of Ohtani's life than the average interpreter, especially for a baseball team. You compare it to the Yankees, for example, who had an interpreter years ago for when they had Masahiro Tanaka, and he was just a very professional interpreter. Stayed within the team walls, handled team business, that sort of thing. Ippei is much more than that, and it's kind of what makes this story a little more intriguing. So Ippei, after Ohtani leaves the Angels, Ippei follows him to the Dodgers, becomes a Dodgers employee. Ohtani obviously takes the $700 million contract, 68 million of each year deferred until after his career is over. And that was done because Ohtani can make so much money in endorsement deals and such, and kind of remember this, take a gamble on how much money he's going to make during the regular season in hopes of attracting more talent to the Dodgers. Take a gamble. And so um, not even a couple months into his Dodgers tenure, he hasn't even played no, he played professional games. I'm sorry, because the whole Dodgers Padres thing kicking off the season in Seoul, which I could make a whole video complaining about. But anyway, um, he's played two games as a Dodger, and the story comes out that his translator supposedly stole roughly $5 million from him to pay off his illegal gambling debts. And this got out because there's a guy, I want to say a broker, the bookie, an illegal bookie who supposedly Ippei was dealing with, that got caught. And since when he was in court, paperwork was, submitted and wires as evidence, and Ohtani's name was on one of them, and it got flagged. And so obviously Ippei was fired by the Dodgers. But the scenario behind it is what makes it interesting, because sure, it could be as simple as Ippei had access to Ohtani's money and stole some of that and wired it to this bookie, and Ohtani, hoping Ohtani would never find out because Ohtani's apparently got a lot of money. There's also a scenario where Ippei got into this trouble and was millions of dollars in debt, and Ohtani bailed him out and wired the bookie some money. And then when it got found out, he didn't want to be attached to this, right? This is, I mean, it's an illegal bookie. Paying him is illegal in itself. So as soon as he's attached to this, it wasn't me. He stole, we're going to let him go, which is kind of shady. Third scenario is, maybe Ohtani had something to do with this. And I'm not saying he did. I don't think he did, but it doesn't quite add up to me that Ohtani had nothing to do with this. Sure, maybe he didn't have anything to do with the gambling, and you could argue that, maybe he knew about the wire transfers. I could buy that story, but I don't buy that he had no clue. I don't buy that he has enough money that he would just not notice $5 million missing for a while, right? And so there's more details that have come out about the story. First of all, that supposedly all this gambling was not on the MLB, that it was on the NFL and Major League, I'm sorry, and the NBA and college sports. But if any of it was in the MLB, there's going to be a huge issue because even if it was just Ippei, he had access to a lot of information in both the Angels and the Dodgers clubhouses. And for him to have that information and go in to the clubhouse, as part of Ohtani's posse, if you will, and be able to risk the sport's integrity that much, that's going to be a problem for Ohtani. And that's if we believe that he wasn't involved. And obviously, if he was involved, I mean, he could get banned for life if he was involved in gambling and it's on Major League Baseball. But let's not talk about that because that's purely speculation. What has come out since is that there's apparently a lot of holes in Ippei's backgrounds, like lying about his previous job history, his education, and such, which I think makes something a little this whole scenario a little more interesting. But I don't think it really acquits anybody either way. I think we have to come down to there's going to be an investigation into Ohtani, and if it's found that he was gambling through Ippei, he's going to get in trouble. If it was found that Ippei was gambling on baseball, Ohtani's going to get in trouble. And if it was found that those two things were both true, Ohtani might be suspended from the league for life. That's not acceptable to be able to bet on your own sport with insider knowledge according to your team. I mean, Pete Rose, although he had some, other I'm not going to go into it, other nefarious acts that he had done over the nefarious is not strong enough of a word, other horrid acts, including, sexual assault of a minor. Now, that's part of the reason keeping him out of the Hall of Fame. But even if that wasn't true, he still bet on baseball, and I think that would keep him out of the Hall of Fame regardless. So if Ohtani did do that, that's a big issue. It just doesn't seem kosher to me. It just doesn't seem like Ohtani never knew about any of this. If I had to put money on it, I think what happened is that Ippei got into this gambling debt. He had a history of gambling, and he just racked up too much. And the bookie, knowing that Ippei had access to Ohtani's funds, knew he could get him out somehow. And Ippei came to Ohtani, and Ohtani, being a good friend, said, "Sure, I'll pay it off," and didn't think it would ever come to a head. And now it's come to a head, and they've tried to cut ties. And I don't think it's going to work out that easily. I think there's going to be some issues legally with Ohtani if he knew about this and they could prove that. But I don't know. Either way, letting Ippei be the fall guy is kind of not very nice for baseball's best player and a guy who I think had a lot of positive PR about him joining the Dodgers. This is a stain for sure. We'll see how it unfolds. I mean, he's not suspended, and well, they do the investigation. MLB is obviously going to do their own independent investigation, as well as there's going to be something legal with Ippei either way because it was an illegal bookie. But it's all interesting, and I think there's going to be more information that's more intriguing as this unfolds. Ohtani is scheduled to speak to the media on Monday. I'll be curious how his story kind of comes out and how harsh he comes down on Ippei. But let me know what you think of the situation in the comments below. Do you think Ohtani is guilty of anything? What do you think of Ippei being in this trouble? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching this Quick Thoughts episode. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.